So I guess we start with the obvious. This project, it's dead. That's it.
It's dead. Yeah. It was one of the fastest launched and the fastest died project we've seen in sports politics in a long, long time.
Okay, now the core issue is it comes down to money, like it always does. And we can obviously debate the merits of why these wealthy clubs wanted to do this to begin with and why others eventually got involved and then pulled out. But I guess talk to us then, what changes are needed then when it comes to UEFA itself so this doesn't happen again?
Well, David, the irony of this whole debacle really is that UEFA has been the culprit for years. I mean, fans have been protesting the just recently announced changes to the new Champions League cycle, expansion from 32 to 36 teams. Again, the reason for that is exactly the same thing that the Super League was founded by, is more money. So the controversy of more money versus fans and the cleanness and the originality of the sport has been around for years. And the fact that the top clubs have wanting a larger allocation of these UEFA TV and other income revenues that the Champions League and the Europa League generate is also nothing new. What was new was the fact that there was a breakaway club, if you like, that made an announcement on a one-pager that no one really anticipated at the time. It was the day before UEFA was announcing their own changes to Champions League format. And this is when everything just blew up. But the controversial element has always been more money and how do you extract more of that TV and auxiliary revenue for the clubs.
And it does go against, of course, one of the principles of sports, right? Where, it's not really about money. You should give the smaller clubs a little bit more chance. And that's really where you actually get a lot more people tuning in, right? When you have something, I think it was Leicester, right? I think a couple of years ago winning the Premier title. So, I mean, what happens next then? Do we go back to square one and then do we go back to the old drawing board?
Yes. I mean, in a way, UEFA should almost thank the Super League from diverting the attention from their own plans, which have just been announced a day ago. So really nothing much will change. It will be an expanded league from 32 to 36 teams. Again, there'll be more games, and that means more money. And the other thing that will likely happen is that the top clubs, which see their IP as being the main driver of the success of the Champions League, will likely have a much stronger seat at the negotiation table, coming up in terms of the allocation of that Champions League revenue.
Marcus, what do you make of the fallout? It is a massive fallout. I mean, the 6 CEOs of the 6 clubs are now under a lot of pressure to step down.
Yes. Look, I think it was never really a possibility of this happening in my opinion, because the leagues, as well as the federation, in this case, UEFA, ultimately are the bigger people at the table. They can put out sanctions. They can, for example, ban players from competing in UEFA sanctioned events like the Euro. So they would have had a number of ways of making this so difficult that what is really puzzling is that the clubs that started this whole thing actually thought there was a legitimate, opportunity to push this through, which I don't think ultimately existed.
In your opinion, do you think we need new laws to protect the game? Because we heard from Boris Johnson, he's trying to perhaps come up with new laws, new regulations in how English football is run.
Well, there's two sides to this. One is this isn't just an English issue, even though they had most of the teams, or half of the 12 were British. But you see that if a prime minister takes off and focuses on a football issue in times that we currently live in, it means there is a lot of voting power behind the subject. I don't believe there needs to be a massive regulatory reframing of of the game. The Champions League format has worked extremely well, over the last decade. It had generated more revenue than anybody ever anticipated. So it's more about the fact that private ownership in sports, and in this case football, but it goes for other sports as well, is part of the new world we live in. And you will continue to see interest clash between ownership that obviously need to generate revenue and ultimately make a profit versus fans who feel that the game doesn't belong to anybody. If you just look at the numbers, these clubs, just the 12 clubs, have a liability of over 7.5 billion euros. Now, it'll be very, very difficult to come up with a scenario where these clubs can, under the current structure, really ever get rid of that load of debt. And that was partly a key driver for them to see, hey, here's a way to make a quick fix to our balance sheets that we don't otherwise know how to really rectify.
Yeah, and it's not just about selling a big name, right? That is quite a massive number. Since we're talking about the commercial side of the business here, Marcus, as a final question, a lot of wealthy families and groups here in the Asia Pacific in recent years have taken stakes in many European clubs. Now, obviously not the top tier ones. It's been a very bad past, 16 months for sport. I would imagine there are many distressed assets out there. How much would it cost me, and I'm asking for a friend, how much would it cost me if I wanted to buy a majority stake, controlling stake, in a competitive club, first division, outside the sort of big four football leagues in Europe? Give me a price.
The leagues vary greatly. Obviously, the Premier League being sort of the upper echelon, and if you then go Bundesliga or La Liga, then prices change. But you should probably run ballpark 500 million will get you a pretty nice team.